The Southwest is known for striking contrasts and bold design. The placement of stone, sculpture, and plant life create living art in the desert. Today we're in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we're at the Fleischer Museum, and I'm with the executive director, Donna Fleischer. Donna, would you share with us the significance of the beautiful sculpture behind us?
Yes, I would love to. This sculpture piece is entitled Spirit, and it's by the regional artist Buck McCain. The museum only represents part of the building. The rest of the building is the corporate headquarters for Franchise Finance Corporation of America. When we built this building, we commissioned Buck McCain to do a piece that we felt would represent the energy and entrepreneurship. This is the result.
It's beautiful too. Now tell us about the landscape, because this is a relatively small landscape area, but yet you have a waterfall here, or a water feature I should say, and you've got some beautiful shrubs. Are these predominantly plants from the Southwest?
Yes, they are. When we built the building, we wanted to use materials indigenous to Arizona, such as the sandstone and the copper that you see on the building. And what we wanted to do, while the landscape is a designed landscape, we wanted it to feel natural and indigenous to Arizona also.
Now, for our viewers' sake, would this be a difficult landscape to maintain here in the Southwest?
Absolutely not. Most all of the plant materials that you see are indigenous to Arizona. They're palo verdes and the mesquites. You'll see the apunchas and the desert creosotes. All of these are indigenous to Arizona. They need very little watering. Most of our maintenance here is basically raking the rockscape for the most part, where people walk across it or come and look at the sculpture and walk around in this area.
Now, about the containers up above, I noticed that you've got some not only beautiful plant material in them, but you've used black stones inside. Are those from this area too?
No, they're not. Those were incorporated into the landscape and were from an outside source.
It's very pretty because it's used kind of as a ground cover in each of the containers. Now, inside in the court sculpture area, is that what you call it?
Yes.
That's very nicely done too. Is that plants native to this area? Or?
Actually not. There's some large euphorbia ingens that are planted in the planters, which are not necessarily indigenous to Arizona. However, I do believe that they do grow in South America, Africa. There are some golden barrels. Again, they will grow here, but not necessarily indigenous to this space. The black rocks that you see in the containers at the top of the stairs have also been incorporated in two of the planter beds in the sculpture court that are planted with the liriope.
Oh, thank you for sharing the beautiful landscape here at Fleischer Museum with us.
Thank you.
Have you started your begonias or dahlias yet? This is a great time to get them started. And they're easy to start, both of them. Here's the beautiful tuberous begonia. This happens to be a bicolor one. It's really very, very pretty. But this is the tuber. And you'll notice that it's concave in the center. That is the top part of the tuber. People very often think because the rounded part is the top, but no, it's the concave section. This doesn't have any buds. Oh yeah, there's one just starting there. And is what we're going to do. There's three different mediums you can start them in. One is potting soil, another one is vermiculite, and the third is peat moss. And probably the most popular is the peat moss mixture. So I'll take a tablespoon and scoop out about a tablespoon of peat moss, and in that area, then I'll set the tuber. But I'm not quite through yet. Because this is concave, if we set it upright like this, it's going to collect water, isn't it? And it's apt to rot. So we set it at a bit of an angle like that, so that any moisture that lands in the concave portion will run away. So there's not much chance then of it rotting. That was the upright. This is the hanging basket type tuberous begonia. And again, let me grab one. This is, again, you can see the concave portion, and the buds have not started on that, but they will very soon. And I'll use the vermiculite, because this is probably the second most popular method of starting. Again, I'll just take a tablespoon out, and I'll set this again at a bit of an angle, so that the moisture will not collect in the concave portion. Now all we have to do is start watering. It has to be inside, remember. These cannot go outdoors until after all danger of frost has passed. Now, for those of you that live in cold climates, you can get a start on your dahlias by starting them indoors now. And this is a dahlia tuber. You'll notice here that this is the main stalk, and usually there, yeah, you can probably see it a little bit better there. There's a little bit of an area that leads off to the actual stalk itself. So you've got to be sure that all of the portions of the dahlia tubers are intact. And this is a dwarf variety, ideal for containers. I've already put a little soil in, so I'm going to set this in. And I'm going to actually then just cover it over with about an inch of soil until it starts growing, and then I'll fill it in the rest of the way. Now, this is the large flowering variety, and I'm also going to start this inside. These don't have much of a neck. Most of them do have a longer neck area here, and I was hoping I could be able to show you, but that's the main portion. Now, that's up. And the dahlia tubers usually lay out like this. So again, we'll just set this in this container. And we'll keep it inside, by the way, until after all danger of frost is past. Plant it outside, take it out of the container if you want. You'll have beautiful early dahlias in your garden. So start those dahlias and tuberous begonias now. Late winter or early spring is the time to prune your roses. And a couple things you'll need, of course, are regular standard pruning shears. And when you get into a big bush like this, you may even need what we call a lopping shears. Now, the important thing is to do this. Any cane that is the size of a pen, cut back to about 6 inches from the ground. Any cane then that is the size of your little finger, go 12 inches, 6-inch increments, in other words. Any cane that is the size of your forefinger up to about 18 inches, and thumb-sized or larger, try to keep under 2 feet. Okay, with that in mind, let's prune. And the first thing we want to do with the rose is to get out the center part to open up the plant and allow for good air circulation and sunlight exposure. So we'll take those center canes out, and here's an old cane. Let's get rid of it too. Here's another one here. So now you see we've eliminated quite a few of the canes to begin with. And we'll go in now and always prune to an outside bud. So it's quite obvious here is an outside bud. And this one's about the size of my little finger. So we'll come up about 12 inches and prune just above that outside bud. Now notice one other thing. As I prune that, I'm making the pruning cut so that any moisture that hits this cut will run down the inside of the cane, not down into that bud. Okay, let's do these others then very quickly. This one's a little bit larger, and it's going to be difficult for you to see it, but there's an outside bud right there, and it's about the same size, so we'll cut it at about 1 foot in height. And since this is a small cane, we'll go quite a ways back. And again, we've got to be careful. We don't want any of the buds to go inside. We want them to all come outside. So I'll look for a side bud, and there is one right there that'll force the growth outward. In other words, the growth will develop in this manner. See, we don't want any growth inside. We want it all outside. Very simple procedure if you follow just a few simple rules. Now, here's an outside bud here, and we'll prune just above that like so. And on this cane here, there's an outside bud right here. Unfortunately, it's at a point where you can't see it, but I'll make the pruning cut just above that outside bud. And in this large cane here, by the way, this is an old cane, and I'm going to take it out completely, because what we want to do is encourage new growth, new canes. That revitalizes the plant. Now, what have we accomplished? We're going to keep the plant down in size by cutting it back severely. We're going to introduce large, long stems and beautiful large flowers. And that's exactly what you do. Don't be afraid to prune those roses. And now's a good time to do it. This is a great time of the year to get after those weeds and grasses that are growing in your flower and shrub beds before they have a chance to flower and go to seed. In fact, I picked these weeds just a few feet from where I am here, and look at, they're already flowering, and in fact that one's even starting to send up a seed head too. So it's important to get them out of the garden before they do flower and go to seed, because these, you know, a little weed like that, it will produce thousands of weed seeds. So let's get rid of them. Look at also here, starting to grow this early in the season, and of course that's a blackberry, so we want to get it out. And you'll notice I got the entire root system so that plant won't come back again. And look here, this is a dandelion, and right here in the middle, flower heads already getting ready to flower. So boy, there again, we want to eliminate them from the garden before they do have a chance to flower and go to seed. And they look ugly besides. Now, I have a winged weeder that's much smaller than this, but it's my favorite tool and I misplaced it. But in the meantime, let's use the long handled one, and I'll use it as a short handled tool. And I'll show you how we can kind of keep these weeds out of the garden for a long time to come. All we'll do is just kind of pull these out after we've loosened them with the weeding device, like so. And see how much better that looks already? Oops, there comes some oxalis too. See, we can use weed killers, herbicides that will keep those weeds from regrowing, but all they'll do is control the seeds, not the weeds themselves. So we've got to get the weeds out first. And that's exactly what I've done there. Now, the next thing I'll do after getting those weeds out is I'll take a pre-emergent herbicide and I'll sprinkle it. And there are always directions on the container, so follow the label instructions, and I'll just sprinkle it kind of like salt over the soil, like so. Now, this is a pre-emergent herbicide. This happens to be one called Amaze, and I have another one here called Prune. Both of them work really well. And what happens is they kill the seed, the weed seed and the grass seed. They will not have any effect on bulbs that might come up, or annuals that we plant a little bit later, or perennials. They'll have no effect on them at all. So you can see I've controlled now the majority of the weeds and grasses that are apt to come in that area. And then to finish this whole project off is what I would do is to take a little bit of bark and then just bark the area, because that kind of gives the finishing touch to it. And we've controlled the weeds and at the same time have made a nice attractive bed. And now's a perfect time to get after those weeds before they flower and go to seed. This is the time of the year to bring those geraniums and fuschias out of their winter resting place and get them started. You know, if you don't get them started early, it's going to be late July or August before they come into bloom. So we like to do it early in the season. Then when all danger of frost is past, we can put them outside, and boy, they'll be in bloom before you even know it. So let's take a geranium first of all. This is one just out of its winter resting place, and boy, it doesn't look like much, does it? But by giving it a little bit of care, we can bring it around again. And I'm going to put it in this rather large, it's almost a 6-inch pot. And what I'll do is kind of spread the roots a little bit. That's some good peat moss and other items there, and so we'll take advantage of them and just use them in the soil. And I'm using a potting soil here, and I'll plant this right at the same level as it was before. And if you can see, a new leaf is already trying to break, even though this plant has been in its dormancy. So that lets us know right away that the plant is, you know, in good shape. And so we'll start watering it, and we'll start fertilizing it, and we'll put it in a place inside where it gets bright light, but it doesn't have to have sunlight. Bright light though. If it could be in a window, that would be great, providing it doesn't get a burn through the window from hot sun. Okay, so there's our geranium, very easy to care for. Now I took this entire group out of here. This has not been divided for a couple years or actually replanted. So, oops, I better put a rock over the drainage hole here first so that the excess soil doesn't just kind of go out the bottom when you water the plant. And again, I'll use a regular potting soil for this. So, what I'm going to do now is to actually go in and separate these plants and bare root them a little, being careful though, because look here, the new growth is coming on this one too. And that gives us an indication, doesn't it, right away that, hey, this plant's ready to get started. So this is a good time for us to be repotting it. And I'll just put this over the side, and I'm going to do this all very quickly. Do this over this side like so, and these two will do the same. See, I'm getting rid of quite a bit of the old root system when I do this. And these are trailing fuchsias, by the way. So, but see how much of the root system I'm tearing back, and we've already cut these back, so we're kind of putting the two in balance once again, aren't we? And then all I need to do is to take some of this good, fresh potting soil and fill around them, and put this in a similar location to the geraniums, where it's full bright light. If you want to get these plants off to a good start, right now is a good time to bring them out of their winter resting place and get them started. Want to add a bright spot of color to your home? What about an African violet? A storyteller African violet, our plant of the week. Look at the beautiful flower colors here. You know, I've always thought of an African violet as a pot plant, but you can see you can cut the flowers and use them in small arrangements too. They're really beautiful for that purpose. And what a wide range of colors. In fact, look at the different leaf colors and the flower colors as well. But look at the leaf size too. There's a large one, there's a medium-sized one, and here's quite a small one. And look at the variegation of the flowers as well. They're absolutely beautiful. And you know what's so neat? African violets are easy to grow, and they flower almost all year long. Take good care of them and you'll have them in bloom almost every month of the year, in fact. The location is a bright area in the home, not in full sunlight, but where the light is bright. Keep them away from heating ducts, and it's also a good idea to let them thrive on a certain amount of neglect. They're not difficult plants to grow, even though they look very, very delicate. Water them with room temperature water, and you can either water them from above or water them from below. It really doesn't make that much difference. Let them dry slightly between waterings. Now, the interesting thing is that these need feeding during the growing season, but not much during the winter season at all. And if you want to get them to bloom, the use of a 0-10-10 type fertilizer would really help. They can be divided right now, and you can start them from divisions, or you can also start them from leaf cuttings. These are storyteller African violets, and they're top quality grown plants. And storyteller African violets are available at your local garden outlets. Look for these labels, an indication that is truly a storyteller African violet. We're in the desert today in Scottsdale at the beautiful Marriott's Camelback Inn, and I'm with the Director of Public Relations, Valerie Lee. Tell me the location, Valerie.
Well, we're situated nestled between Mummy Mountain and Camelback Mountain, which are two of the popular scenic mountains here, located on 125 acres of desert landscape. It's a wonderful setting.
It's beautiful, you bet. And it's what's so amazing to me is we always think of the desert as cactus, and yet here we have citrus, there's lemons and oranges, and look at the beautiful flowers as well. And the fragrance here is outstanding. Tell me a little bit about the grounds. I noticed towards the entry area you have a gorgeous fountain.
Oh, yes. Well, in the main walkways of the hotel, the fountain entrance, the north garden where we're sitting now, you're going to see lots of desert and floral beds that are actually changed 4 times a year. Seasonal colors. You're going to see about 75,000 flowers. And so there's lots of bright bursts of color. And as you meander through the rest of the property, you're going to see more of desert landscape, the things that the travelers love to come and enjoy, the saguaros, which are really indigenous to the area, the different types of plant life and cacti.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
Tell us also a little bit, throughout the gardens there's pockets kind of small gardens, aren't there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how many staff do you have here to maintain the grounds?
Well, just here at the resort, we have more than 20 people on our crew that just do a fabulous job. Been here for years, taking care and just making it so manicured. And then over at our golf course, we have about another 20 people take care of our course grounds.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about the facilities here.
Well, we cater to a variety of different guests that come for our unique setting and the desert. We have 427 casitas. We have a wonderful world-class spa, golf, tennis. There's horseback riding nearby. People like to hike and bike and just really explore the desert and all that's around us. And it's just a really special place.
The thing that I have enjoyed here from the gardening standpoint particularly is, plants like the stock that provide such a great fragrance. Everywhere where you walk in the gardens or around the entire facilities, you get the fragrance, of course, of these beautiful stock, and of course of the snapdragons and their beauty and the many colors. And I noticed here behind us a beautiful bed of Iceland poppies. Absolutely beautiful.
And those are the types of flowers too that do very well throughout the seasonal changes. In the summer you're going to see lots more of the bougainvillea, so there's different plants that just do very, very well here in the desert.
Thanks, Valerie. That's all the time we have today. Hope you can join me at this same time again next time for Gardening in America.